Hi, welcome to Taji's World of Books, and this is my top 10 favorite fantasy romances. Hi everybody, welcome back to Taji's World of Books, and today I thought that I would give you my top 10 favorite fantasy romances that I have read, that I think, if you haven't checked out these books, if you haven't heard me talk about them, if you haven't heard of them, I don't know, you might be living under a rock, and we want to bring you out and bring you into this fantasy world and introduce you to these authors or introduce you to these books. Okay, so I'm not going to go into great detail because, again, you guys don't want to be here for like 30 minutes listening to me talk about these books, but I am going to give you enough to maybe whet your appetite so that you'll go and check them out as well. All right, so the first one, you guys have heard me talk about Grace Draven. I mentioned Phoenix Unbound in the past. This is a Romanesque society where every year each town in the empire has to give a tribute for the games. And the games basically burn the tribute alive, and they do it for entertainment. It's a very brutal society in which magic and dragon exists. Okay, so then in comes Jeline, and Jeline has been tribute from her village every year for the past 10 years. And Azarian has paid attention and noticed that for whatever reason, he sees past Jeline's glamour. And so for the sake of explaining the story, Jeline is basically a fire witch. And his village and his people worship the fire witches and worship the fire goddess. And so he sees past her glamour and knows that she is the same person that has been sent every year. And so this particular year, he decides to take her captive, escape, and he is going to use her to help him to recapture his throne or leadership over his village that was stolen from him. And then he'll set her free and let her go back to her village. So this is a captor-captive situation. This is forced proximity. This story will capture your attention from page one. It is fast-paced. It is brutal. It is exciting. They come across, they're traveling along the road. They meet up with other travelers. They meet with a caravan of travelers who sell merchants and wares at the various fairs, and they develop friendships. They're posing as husband and wife. So again, the forced proximity is that they're sleeping together, and she is slowly starting to fall for him, but is very angry and resentful that he's held her against her will, and so she doesn't want to. It's a very slow burn, but once it burns, it burns. And Grace Draven does an amazing fantasy romance. She did a great job with this book. The companion novel to this is amazing. I definitely think that you should check it out. It's great, and you absolutely should check it out. The next recommendation is also by Grace Draven, and this is Radiance, and this is an ongoing series. I think she just put out the third book in this series as well, which I haven't read yet, but I do plan on doing this. And it is the story of Brishan and Ildiko, and they are from allying kingdoms, and they are being forced to marry because it helps to preserve the amity and the relationships between the two kingdoms. And she doesn't want to marry him, but she's going to do her duty as the princess and part of the royal family. So it's a strategic marriage, and she does her job. Prior to marrying him, she goes out into the garden that is the sort of quadrangle in the kingdom, and she's sitting out there. And when she's sitting out there, she meets this man, and she has a conversation with him, and she genuinely likes him, and he is genuinely a kind person. And so he doesn't tell her who he is, and she doesn't say who she is. They just have a conversation, and it's a really nice conversation. And moving forward, you find that this is Brishan, the person whom she is set to marry. It is a slow burn romance. They genuinely are friends. They genuinely like one another. They genuinely respect one another. And so therefore they work really well together. So like I said, it is slow burn, but it is a beautiful, beautiful story of working together and commitment and compassion and relationships. And it definitely is, a traditional and political alliance between the human kingdom of Gar and the Kai kingdom of Bast Haradis. It delivers in all the ways. It just gives you hope in humanity. And so this is a series that I definitely want to continue and want to stick with, and I think that you should try it out as well. Okay, so next I want to talk about the Captive Prince series by C.S. Pacat. You've heard me talk about this before. This is the story of a warrior named Daemon and the prince of an allied kingdom named Prince Laurent. The story takes off when Daemon wakes up and he is in the slave quarters and he's being sold in the slave market to an allied kingdom. And it's clear that because he is a prince in his own right in his kingdom, and it's clear that he has been drugged and deceived and sold away so that he will not take the throne because he's next in line to take the throne. And so the story unravels in the sense that you have to figure out who is conspiring against him and why he's been sent here and who is working with him and who's working against him. And it's a beautiful story of court politics, lies, deceit. It's a story between Daemon and Laurent. And is Laurent good? Is he bad? Is he evil? Is he working with him? And who are they to one another? And who will they become to one another? And, I love that they call Prince Laurent beautiful, manipulative, and deadly. And he is the epitome of the worst things of this new kingdom. And how they treat their slaves, because their slaves are sex slaves. But in one kingdom that is really highly regarded and they're highly trained and highly specialized. And in another kingdom, they're treated as garbage. And how that impacts the psyche and what that means. And so again, this is another story that when you read the trilogy, it is beautiful and it's so well done and so good that I can't speak highly enough of it. I don't want to tell too much because you shouldn't know much about it, but you should go in pretty blind, but you should check it out for sure because she did a good job with this as well. So this story, The Heart of the Fae, is written by Emma Hamm. I don't hear enough of this story, and I think it is a beautiful, beautiful story. It's basically a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and she is a midwife, and she falls in love with the Fae King. But because he has been cursed, she has to work through and learn to love him, and he is so bitter and so angry and so resentful of everything that's been done to him that he makes it really, really difficult to love him. And he is not an easy character. He's a complicated, complex character, but so is she. And they go through a lot together, and it is redemption and love and respect and honesty and fighting for what you love and being willing to not give up on the people whom you know are worth it, even when they push you away in so many ways. And he does so many things that she finds out that he's done that you clearly know that he's more than you're seeing or what is like the surface level of him. But this is one of the best Beauty and the Beast retelling stories that I have read in a really long time. You should read the series. The first two books in the series are their story, and then the other books are members of their court and companion novels. But I don't hear enough about this author. She's an independent author as far as I know. So this is a self-published independent book, but definitely Emma Hamm is worth checking out as another beautiful, beautiful fantasy romance retelling. Okay, so this book, I just pulled one of them off the shelf, but I have mentioned in the past that Cassandra Clare was one of the first authors that I started reading and when I refound my love of reading. And I definitely put this under fantasy romance. I love the whole Mortal Instruments as well as the Infernal Devices and everything else that she's written. But this story, I think hands down, the Infernal Devices is my favorite of all time, in that it's whimsical, it's beautiful, it's heart-wrenching, It's the story of friendship. It's the story of love. If you guys have not read this, how could you not? It is so beautiful and tears your heart out in so many ways. And even with the Mortal Instrument series, when you hear what's going on now with these characters, it is just so beautiful and so much. It's so worth a read, and it's so worth telling. And each character develops in their own way, and it's about sacrifice, and it's about, you know, and there's the story of, if you don't know, the parabatai relationship. That's not a romantic relationship, but it's more than a romantic relationship. It's more than a brotherly relationship. It's more than a sisterly relationship. It's the highest connection that anyone can ever have. But then between the three of them, between Will and Tessa and Jem, it is, oh God, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Love, loss, forgiveness, sacrifice, mystery, intrigue, battles, fighting against demons. It brings everything and gives you all the feels. And if you haven't read this, you have to. I can't recommend it enough. So the next on my list is Shelby Maher's Serpent and Dove. And so this is the story of when a witch hunter and a witch are forced to marry one another, and they slowly start to, through a slow burn, love. It's a love to hate to love, slow burn, enemies, forced proximity situation. It is beautifully written, well done. The story and the books are still ongoing, so we still don't have a final conclusion. Blood and Honey is the second installation, and it left us on a cliffhanger. It is, but this book is their relationship between Reed and Lou. Between Reed and Lou is so beautiful, and it needed to take time to develop, and we knew it before they did. And Reed is so respectful of her, and once he marries her, regardless of who she is or what she's done, he is going to protect her and keep her safe, even though she doesn't need it, but she has to let him be who he is. And it's the story of the evil in the human condition, but also the goodness in the human condition, and how those things tear apart and how they come together, both with Reed and Lou and their companions and the people that are around them. And so, again, this is something that I can't recommend highly enough. It's a beautiful, beautiful story, and I think you should check it out. So, I've spoken about Docile before. Docile is by K.M. Szpara, I think is how you pronounce it. It's a new novel. And this is definitely an unforgettable story of the human condition. It is a society, it's a dystopian society in which you take on all of the debt of your family and ancestors, and you can, if you can't pay that debt, you can become what is called a docile. And the docile is basically a sex slave that is being taken on in this society. And most people take this medication called Docilian, and the Docilian allows you to become docile and compliant, but it also makes you forget. And the main character in here does not want to take the medication because he has history seeing how this medication has destroyed somebody that was very dear to him. And so he's like, I'm opposed to it. I'm not going to do it. I don't want to take the medication. So his master basically says, okay, fine. If you don't want to do it, I'll take on the task, but I'm going to train you through BDSM and cognitive behavioral techniques to be a slave. And he does. And it is painful, it's heart-wrenching, it's redemption, and it's about the story of the human condition and what you can put a person through when you break them completely down and they're left with nothing. And what does that do to both you and that person? And can you ever come back from that? It tore my heart out and then brought it back together again in a way. But it also is a story that I'll never forget, because I want to know, where does it go from here? You know, And then when you are on equal footing and you are trying to figure out, can we do this? Does it work? And will it ever? And what does that even look like? And it is so beautiful. It's so beautiful, but it's so heart-wrenching in what people can do to one another. And when you rob a person of their free will, what you resign them to and what they believe about themselves. I can't speak highly enough about it. It is a ride, it is intense, and it'll make you think. And I definitely think if you read this, it'll be a story you'll never forget. And I think the last book that I want to recommend is Aurora Burning, and that's by Amy Kaufman and Jade Kristoff. And I absolutely love it because you've got a squad of people that it's a futuristic society that are on a mission to save the world. And I love that the squad of your dreams is mostly back. This is the last installation. We still are waiting on the next. And I love it because you have the alpha, the diplomat, the scientist, the gearhead, the warrior, the pirate, and the mystery girl. And we're all working towards a common goal. There's a fated mate element to this story as well. This is a YA story, but and there are fae in this story, but you're all in space and in a futuristic society. And they're trying to combat or fight against the ancient evil that exists. You've got agents from the GIA that are there to work against them, or are they supporting them, and who's behind the conspiracy. And so it definitely gives me a feel of we're working together to save the world, but at the same time, are we working against one another, for one another? Are we supporting each other? Are we together? Are we not? And so again, the romance element in here is beautiful, and I love it, and it's amazing, and because it has that fated mate component to it. But what does that mean? And are we working towards that, or are we all feeling it, or are we not? So I think if you haven't tried out Amy Kaufman and Jay Kristoff, I think that you should, because again, they write a really, really good story. Another story that they've written is the Nevernight Chronicles, but I won't talk about that now. But again, I think you should check it out. So that is all I have for today. I really hope that you enjoyed my recommendation for fantasy romance. And if you have other recommendations or you want to see me do other videos, please leave it in the comment below. But that's all I have for today. And you guys know I upload new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So I look forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye!